President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and the floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia. Perhaps the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia may have some further question. You can proceed now.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a matter of fact, we would like to request some additional time. We have more questions than anticipated, and there was also a long deliberation in relation to one question. So we have 2 sessions, but the Nguyen Chia defense team would like to have an additional 45 minutes.
President, Counsel Aung Tak Vise, you have the floor.
Oui, merci, monsieur.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My colleague Kope has made a request for the Nguyen Chia team. I would like to reiterate my application of yesterday. It will, of course, depend on the way my colleague's examination of this witness proceeds and the subjects that he will broach. In any case, if he continues after the break and makes an addition, as he's asking for additional time, I'm also asking for the same. I need 20 additional minutes, as you granted to the civil party lawyers and the international co-prosecutor. Of course, this is an early application. If it turns out that it is not necessary, I will inform you accordingly. Let me point out that as part of the way these hearings are organized, I will need more time than has been allotted to me, and I know that we have to split the time 50-50, and it will all depend on how my colleague's cross-examination of this witness proceeds.
អង្គជំរះ
President, the chamber provides 10 additional minutes to each defense teams. And let me clarify that yesterday the chamber used the time of parties, particularly to question the civil party on identities. So you should not calculate the time used by the bench with the time used by parties. Yesterday it was clear that the chamber was strict to the time allotted to the co-prosecutors and the co-lead lawyers for civil parties. So once again, the chamber gives 10 additional minutes to each defense team.
Allow me, Mr. President, to kindly remind the Chamber that this is the only evidence that we will ever hear in relation to the events described. It's a genocide charge. We're not talking about some burglary. We really need to question this particular civil party more than previously anticipated. So I implore you to recall.
លោកអញ្ជើញសួរទៅលោកកុំឲ្យចំណាយ
President, please resume your questioning. Do not waste the time. It's almost, you used 10 minutes already now.
Mr. Civil Party, your wife's name was Bu Samban. Is that correct? And if yes, is that a Khmer name?
Answer. I asked my parents-in-law that name was Khmer name, and that name was also used during the time she was in school.
Now you said that you were just as old as your late wife. You were born around the same time. Is it correct that you and her were born not in Cambodia but in Indochina? An entity then called Indochina?
Answer, yes, that is true. I asked the question about that. My parents-in-law also told me like what you said, and the elderly within the village also mentioned about this point. During the time that she was in school, she was called by her teacher the name you mentioned, and my parents-in-law also used that Khmer name.
Just to be sure, does that mean that your parents-in-law in 1954 became Cambodian citizens as well?
Answer. My parents-in-law did not receive Khmer nationality. Only my wife who received the Khmer nationality, and she had the Khmer name.
Now, yesterday you spoke about 7 mixed families, Vietnamese wives or husbands and Khmer wives and husbands. Can you tell me any of the names of these 7 couples?
Answer. I could recall only 3 names concerning 3 Khmer family members. It is true that 7 families was with me at that time, and I can tell you the 3 names of the Khmer family members if you want.
Please do.
My name was Prat Duan. My wife's name was Bu Samban. another person's name was Sok, and the wife's name was Tuj, and Mr. Sok was Vietnamese. And there was another man and another woman, Ta Linh and Ye Suen. Yuan was Khmer, and Ta Linh was Vietnamese. He had been taken away and killed together with my wife.
How did you know at the time that he and the other woman, Thuy, that they were Vietnamese? How did you know?
Answer. People said about that in the cooperative, in my cooperative. Sok married to a woman of Vietnamese citizens in the Kampong Chnang, and Ta Linh was a specialist staff in the one unit. Ta Linh married a wife in Dom Nạ Srok Riet. I can recall all those names, but I did not know them very well.
So is it then fair for me to conclude that the source of your knowledge in relation to these to the ethnicity of 7 couples is what you heard from villagers? Is that your source of information?
Answer. Let me clarify. I heard from workers within my cooperative. They talked to one another that this person was Vietnamese, had a Vietnamese wife or husband. I overheard from workers within my cooperative, and from that time onwards, I realized that some particular individual were Cambodian, marrying a Vietnamese wife or Vietnamese husband.
So is it then fair for me to summarize that the ethnicity of these 7 Vietnamese people is based on hearsay information from villagers? It is in fact hearsay information.
Answer. Yes, that is true.
Do you know how the alleged CPK cadres who were involved, how did they know that the people that you refer to had Vietnamese origins? Do you know how they knew?
Answer. I do not know on this point. When we were mobilized, I realized that those who were mobilized would be taken away and killed. I was in doubt at that time. However, when we were relocated, we were not threatened. We were walked away to the place where they wanted us to go. And I was quite sure at the time that we would be taken away and killed. Concerning my wife, she was weeping along the way.
But just to be clear, is it correct that you don't know how the CPK cadres knew that these 7 people were Vietnamese? Is that correct?
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
The events that you described, Mr. Civil Party, have not been investigated by any investigator of this court. So we have literally 0 corroborating evidence. Could you tell the court the names of any people who could confirm what you have described today and yesterday? In other words, is any of the 7 survivors still alive If yes, what is her or his name, and where does this person live?
Answer. I have learned this information since that time. Husbands had been taken away and killed. Two wives survived the period. They are now living in Kampong Chnang province, in Domna Riech village. Concerning that two surviving women, their husbands had been taken away and killed. Only them survived nowadays.
So these two women that you just mentioned, were they part of that group of 7 couples or 7 families?
Answer. Actually, the two surviving women got married in the Sihanouk's time.
That was not my question, Mr. Civil Party. My question is whether these two women that you described, were they part of the group of 7 families? In other words, can they tell the court the same thing about the events as you?
Answer. For those who had been taken away, they were killed. Only 2 women survived the period.
One last time, Mr. Civil Party. The 2 women that you just described, were they part of that group of 7 families? And are they in a position, if you know, to confirm your story?
Answer. Yes, they were part of the group, the 7 families.
Do you know their names, and are you willing to give the names to the chamber, please?
Answer. Soon. I do not know her surname. Her name was a Soon, and another woman's name is Tu. They are surviving and they are living now today.
And in which village are they living now?
No.
Answer. They are living in Domna Riech village, close to Kampong Chnang, said Civil Party.
Thank you, Mr. Civil Party. And my last subject, you testified that you didn't actually yourself witness the alleged killing. However, you say that the next day, Comrade Hum told you what had happened the day before. Now, can you explain the court why it was that Comrade Him told you the next day that he had just killed your wife and 6 or 7 or 8 others? Why was it that he told you this?
Answer. He did not tell me that he had killed those people who had been taken away. The morning after, he met me and he saw me that I was so sad. He told me at the time that my family members had all been killed, and he suggested me to ask Anka to remarry me. I was hopeless at the time after I heard that my family members had been killed.
Thank you, Mr. Civil Party, but my question was, did he tell you why he told you this? Why did he give that information to you? It seems that he just basically confessed to participation in a mass execution. Why did he tell you that?
Answer. I did not know why at that time he told me. He was the cadre and he was the unit chief. I considered him a soldier at the time. He had been relocated from somewhere else to work within my unit. I was thinking and wondering perhaps he was the one who had killed those people, since he knew the information. Since I was afraid of my life and I was afraid that I would be killed, I did not, poke into the matter any longer after I heard that.
But apparently he didn't only tell you that your wife was killed, he also told you who was responsible for the actual killing, Comrade Bourne, and also the way in which your wife and your child, especially your child, were killed. Did he tell you why he told you those details as well?
President, please hold on, Mr. Civil Party. You have the floor now, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think there is a misinterpretation, as was the case with the previous question, of the response of the Civil Party. Of course, yesterday he described how the child was killed, and he said that was Comrade Boone who told him. But I never noted anywhere that Comrade Hun said that it was Bourne who had been the executioner, the chief of executions on that day. So I think the question should be more specific or be rephrased.
Right now, Mr. President, I'm only interested in the reasons for him having acquired hearsay information.
But Council, we are listening to the same translation. He said, I do not know. That's what I heard in English as an answer to your last question.
Maybe I didn't hear it. I didn't hear an answer to the questions as to why Comrade Him also told him the details.
If he didn't know why he talked to him in the first place about the thing, why would he then, what sense does the question make about details? He says, I don't know why he told me. That's what I heard in English.
Fine, I will move on. As a matter of fact, I'm done.
Je vois que Monsieur le Président me donne.
I see that the President has given me the floor. Good morning, Mr. Prakdun. My name is Anta Gise, and I am International Counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampan. And it is in this capacity that I will put some follow-up questions to you. I know it is difficult, but may I request you to be very attentive and to carefully listen to my questions and answer them concisely, because I do not have a lot of time. I remember you saying that you were married at the age of 19. My first question is as follows. After your marriage, did your in-laws live with you and your wife?
Answer. At the time, I was living close to his or her house. However, we were living in a separate house.
Hier, vers
Yesterday at about 11:28, you said that your father-in-law died under the late Sihanouk regime. Can you be more specific? Was that before or after the Lon Nol coup d'etat?
Answer. He died perhaps 10 years ago, before it was Lon Nol's time. My mother-in-law was living and she passed away during the genocidal regime, said civil party.
et est-ce qu'à la suite du décès de votre beau-père,
And after the death of your father-in-law, did your mother-in-law come to live with you and your wife?
Answer. She was a grocer selling grocery, and I was living in a separate house. As I said, our houses were adjacent to one another.
hier également,
Yesterday at 11:17, you explained that in 1975 you were transferred to Pechanveng with your entire family. At that time, did your mother-in-law come to reside with you, to live with you?
Answer. After the evacuation, my mother-in-law, together with my whole family, were living together. At that time, we had not been dispersed into different groups yet. Later on, after I had been relocated to a fishing unit, we were separated from each other by the Khmer Rouge. I cannot tell you the exact date when I was relocated to a fishing unit. And later on, I was allowed to live together with my whole family in Tamil within a cooperative.
j'ai bien
I indeed noted all that. May I again ask you to carefully listen to my questions, because I will ask follow-up questions for clarification purposes later on. But be careful and be very concise. Your mother-in-law lived with you and your family in Pechanveng without recalling the exact date on which you were transferred to the fisheries unit in Kotamog, pardon me. Do you remember for how long you stayed at Pechanveng before you left alone to Kotamog?
I was allowed to stay there for only a fortnight. And I did not know what happened later through my in-laws.
quand vous dites
When you say that you do not know what happened to your mother-in-law, when you were transferred to the fisheries unit, I do understand that you were in that unit for 1 year all by yourself before you brought your family. Did your mother-in-law also join you alongside your wife and children?
Yes, we were allowed to live together.
je voudrais maintenant
Can I now focus on the fishing unit that you were working in? Can you remember who your supervisor was when you first arrived at the fishing unit 2 weeks after leaving Pechongrang?
I was reassigned to go there by the soldiers. At that time, we were assigned to live in a cooperative, and Ruh was in charge of the male unit, and there were Hum, Na, and Ruh. There were 4 of them who were in charge of the entire cooperative where I lived.
And were those people in charge the ones that were there when you first arrived at that fishing unit, right at the start?
Yes, the soldiers delivered us to these cadres, and we were received by these cadres into the unit.
Vous avez indiqué que
You said that the fishing unit was attached to a cooperative. Can you tell us the name of the cooperative, please?
The cooperative is also known as the district fishing unit, and that what was told by the cadres there, and that name was given by Onkar.
et de quel
Thank you. And what district are we talking about, please?
I do not know which district it was. It was only referred to as the district fishing unit, and it's possible that it was the Boribo district in Samaki village.
Je voudrais maintenant
Let's look now at the request you made to bring your family to where you were. Yesterday you said that the request submitted at the end of 1976. Can you tell us who you made the request to?
I made a request to the unit chief, that is the Ruh, so that my wife could come to live with us. In fact, I was afraid when I made the request, and before I made a request, I talked to him a little bit. And after I made a request, he said that I should wait for a while since Anka would organize that for me.
And when it came to the facts, how was the travel to the island organized? As I understand it, your fishing unit was working on an island, so how was the transfer for your family arranged?
They walked on foot, and there was even no ox cart to transport them, so it was rather difficult for them to walk on foot.
In Pekchongvan, who was advised that permission had been given to have your family transferred? Do you know how that was arranged?
I did not know. I only made my request to the unit chief, and I did not know who actually let them come to live with me at the fishing unit.
Yesterday, just before 1:53, you said that the cadres, who were kind-hearted, accepted the request for my family to come. Now, are we talking about Daro here as being a kind-hearted cadre?
No, it was Comrade Hum It was Madam who said that I should not think about my family anymore as they had been smashed, and I should focus on my work at the fishing unit. But the unit chief didn't tell me about that.
Excusez-moi, Monsieur Bragdon.
Excuse me, Mr. Bragdon. We're getting a little bit lost here. I'm talking about not the moment when you were told that your wife was dead. I'm talking about the point in time when it was accepted to have your family transferred to come to you. And yesterday, a little bit before 1:53, you said that the cadres, who were good-hearted, accepted my request for my wife and children to come and live on the island. And so here we're talking about your request to have your family brought to you. And so the question I'm putting to you, who are we talking about when we talk about these kind-hearted cadres?
As I said, it was Comrade Hum. He was the only cadre.
Alors, une précision.
All right. Can I be certain about this? Is Comrade Hum a man or a woman, please?
Comrade Hum was a female comrade.
Quand votre famille...
When your family reached the island, I understand from your testimony that they worked on a farm. That was about 16 minutes past 2. Can you confirm that, please?
I did not even know when she arrived at the cooperative. When I returned from work, I was told that my wife had arrived, but I did not see her yet. And later on, in late afternoon, I saw her.
Excusez-moi.
President, Mr. Pradhan, please respond briefly. You do not need to make a lengthy response, as it will take a longer time, and that may lead to other problems. Because whatever you said may be used by the council to put further questions to you, and we have reminded you since the start of your testimony.
Donc, je vais vous reposer ma question.
Very well. Let me ask you the precise question again. When your wife reached the island, did she then go on to work in a farm? That's what I understood you saying yesterday at 2:16. So while you were in the fishing unit, am I right in believing that your wife was working on a farm planting vegetables?
The interpreter does not get the response from the civil party.
Est-ce que vous pourriez répéter?
Yes. Could you please repeat your answer for the benefit of the interpreters?
When my wife arrived, she was assigned to grow vegetable at the cooperative where I lived.
Hier,
At 18 minutes past 2 yesterday, and then once again at around 2:26, you said that during the day you worked in different places, and then in the evening you met together. And I believe I understood that you were the only one in the fishing unit, you can make this clear to me, who was authorized to get together with your family once again in the evening. Is that right?
No, that is not correct, because we came together with other families, and it was not just for my family alone, but we were assigned to work at different locations and sections, for example, the farming and the fishing unit, and there were only 3 or 4 people in charge of us all.
D'accord.
All right. So everybody was allowed to meet up with their family in the evening. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
J'en viens maintenant.
Now, let me turn to another point. It may have been clarified already this morning. I'm not sure. You said that at one point, Comrade Hum took you to task for having married a woman of Vietnamese origin, while there were a great many Cambodian women. Is it right that the only time she brought that up was after the death of your wife, but before that, when your wife and the rest of your family reached the island, nobody made any particular comment of that kind? Is that correct? Can you confirm?
Yes, that is correct.
Vous avez un...
To my colleague Councillor Koppe, you said that you learned from rumours in the village that other mixed families with spouses of Vietnamese origin lived on the island. Did you see these families before the day when you were told to leave the village, or was it only when you all assembled to leave the place that you actually saw these other people?
I didn't know from where they gathered those people. Then we were evacuated together, and later on we learned to know one another. And there were 7 families all together, and we were the subject to be taken away and killed.
You said that we got to know each other at a later stage, so am I right in thinking that when everybody was assembled on that day, you didn't yet know those other families?
Yes, that is correct.
Je voudrais maintenant...
I'd now like to look at the question of these rumours about Vietnamese infiltration. In your testimony, there was something I didn't quite understand. How did you hear that there had been Vietnamese infiltration into the country? Yesterday, you were answering the deputy prosecutor in saying that a group of soldiers seems to have brought this up. But let me ask you, was it these soldiers who, for the very first time, raised the question with you of Vietnamese infiltration?
No, actually I learned from the cadres who were talking among themselves, and I overheard them. They said that we would be in trouble since the Vietnamese troops were now at the border. I didn't say anything because I was afraid. I only kept listening to what they said, and I did not know whether that was true or not.
Et de...
Which cadre are you talking about? Who was talking about Vietnamese arriving on the border?
I heard soldiers. They were pretty young. They were about 18 to 20 years old. They were talking among themselves when they were passing me, so I only overheard them talking about this.
I'm not sure I got that. Are we talking about soldiers or cadres from the cooperative? Could you please be more precise?
I noticed that they were wearing the same black clothes, but because they carry weapons, so I presumed that they were soldiers and they were on duty. And they were speaking to each other that the Vietnamese troop was approaching the border, and that was all I heard.
D'accord. Et
Very well. And when you raised the matter of questions that the soldiers might have asked you about Vietnamese in the cooperative, this with the co-prosecutor yesterday, were you talking about these soldiers or other people?
No, I did not refer to the cadres. I referred to the soldiers who were on duty, and they were passing by me, and I overheard them speaking about that. They didn't come and tell me that information.
alors,
We seem to be getting confused here, but yesterday at 3:50, you said that they asked me if there were Vietnamese in the cooperative, and I said I hadn't seen any. Was your answer misunderstood?
I made 2 points, and the point that you just said was what I referred to the position of the cadres in the unit. However, regarding this conversation, I refer to a group of soldiers.
alors,
I'm still a little befogged here. Can you talk to me about the conversation with the cadres? And was it the cadres who asked you if there were Vietnamese within the cooperative?
Yes, that were the cadres who asked about the number of Vietnamese people living there. And I didn't tell them anything about the Vietnamese, as I were telling them only about my family situation.
So once again, please, which cadres are you talking about? Who were the cadres who asked you these questions?
It was Comrade Na who asked me that question.
You'll tell us if Comrade Na is a man or a woman. And did he or she work with Comrade Hum?
Comrade Na, Comrade Hum, Hoon, and another comrade were working together in the cooperative, and Comrade Na was the one who asked me that question.
et
These cadres you have just named, tell us if they were responsible for the agriculture unit that your wife was working in as well?
Yes, that is correct.
vous avez
A while ago you said that your mother-in-law came to live with you on the island. Was she also working in the cooperative?
No, She was looking and taking care of the children, including my 1.5-year-old child.
Et est-ce que les...
So these other cadres, Nahum and so forth, did they know your mother-in-law? Had they seen her before?
Yes, they knew her very well in the cooperative, as she was my mother-in-law, and they also knew my wife.
Ce matin,
This morning, there was something that was unclear in my French translation. It emerged that you were considered to be a convincing person, and you were then put in charge of a fishing unit. So do I understand correctly that at a given point in time you were in charge of a unit or a group?
No, I wasn't. I was in charge of a group temporarily. They didn't have any official assignment. I was told now I should go and do this together with these few men and look after them when we were there. That was all.
qu'est-ce que ça...
Looking after these people, what precisely did that mean?
For example, if we were to assign to cut some trees to make poles, then I had to be responsible for achieving that task within this group, and that was all. So usually I would be assigned a provisional role to be in charge of a certain task or assignment for that group.
Et ça,
And was that while your wife and mother-in-law were still in the cooperative?
Yes, that is correct.
j'en viens maintenant.
Can we now talk about the moment when the mixed families gathered together on the day when you were separated from your family? And if my understanding is correct, you were told when you got together that you were going to be sent elsewhere. I believe you said that you left, and this was at 3:25. You said that we left at about 6 o'clock in the evening and we reached the destination at 3:30. Is it correct then that you walked through the night and reached the destination at 3:30 in the morning?
I do not get your question. Please repeat it.
Hier,
Yesterday, and I'm looking at what you said yesterday. Quote, we left at about 6 o'clock, and by my estimation, we reached our destination at around 3:30. So my first question is, what destination are we talking about here?
We left the cooperative at around 6 p.m. We were not forced to walk faster, but because of the lack of food and when we were tired, When we reached an area where there was a pond, then we were allowed to rest there. And by about 3:30 or 4, we reached an area where the execution took place.
Vous avez indiqué ne
You said that you didn't witness the execution because you were somewhere else. Can we just come back to this precise moment when the two groups separated? When that happened, where did your group go to? Where did you stop for the night?
I was assigned to Strasser Rise, when my wife was taken to Turoka. I was sent to Wat Milum.
Wat Milum was how far away from the place you left at 6 o'clock in the evening?
It is my estimate. The distance was about 20 kilometers from the cooperative where I lived to Wat Milum. And we walked through a patchy path. It was not a smooth road. We walked until we reached the location where the killing took place.
Là encore, vous avez
You talked about Tuolroka and the execution site. You personally apparently were not present at the moment of the execution, and then you said it was Comrade Hum who told you about this.
Yes.
Est-ce que vous savez
Do you know what distance there is between Watelong, or the place where you were working, and Tuolroka?
I can only give you an estimate since I cannot know the exact distance. I believed it was more than 10 kilometers from Wat Milum to Tuolroka.
vous arrivez à Wat
So you reached Wat Milum with the group that was in your group and who had been separated from the other group. And there were you received by the cooperative chief of Wat Milum? And were you still being escorted by the two soldiers who you mentioned yesterday?
No, I was assigned to Strasser Rise, and I saw soldiers hanging to two CK rifles. And that was where I was assigned to Strasser Rise, and I did not dare to answer any question by that time.
Monsieur le Président, je vois qu'il est 11h30.
Mr. President, we seem to have reached 11:30. It may be the time to take a break there. I saw that there were 10 supplementary minutes. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't think I can finish in less than 20 minutes. I have one or two written statements to bring up, or written documents to raise with Mr. Prakdun. And I wanted simply to put my cards on the table and tell you that I will be needing a little bit more than 10 minutes.
President, thank you, Council. The time is now convenient for us to take our lunch break. We take a break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer, please assist the witness during the lunch break and invite him as well as the TPO staff back into the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon. Security personnel joined Snati to take Kyo Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and had him returned to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30. The court is now in recess.